Hey, it's Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's November 15th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And you can see here, looking at the daily chart, we continue to push higher. Uh, Generally, what's happened the last couple of days is we pushed higher, but then we sell off before the day's over. And the reason is you can see we're getting very oversold here. And notice how we're closing right below that line. Um, we're very close to this trend line. So we could continue to kind of fight our way up here to this trend line, and we could get a break because we came up very short down here. So um, we'll just have to see what happens. We're still, I mean, we're kind of in that point. We're just kind of chopping sideways, really, is what we're doing. Although we are pushing higher at times, we're not closing higher. We did close higher today than yesterday, but we still haven't closed as high as we did back here on, I believe this was, I can't remember what day this was. Um, on the 11th. I don't remember what day that was. So we'll just have to see how this kind of continues to play out. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we don't continue to try to push higher towards this trend line, but we could sell off at any minute. So we continue to be very overbought here. But there's a quick look at it on the weekly, or I'm sorry, on the daily chart. Let's flip over to the 2000 tick intraday chart and take a look at that and go through the trades. Basically, it was a range type day. Um, we did close up, and there was a gap on the chart. I'll show you that, and we'll go through the trades and wrap this day up. But let's flip over there, and we'll go from there. Okay, here's an intraday chart. You can see we were in this range early on. We had this spike up, but let me zoom out a little bit more here. You can see here's the high from yesterday. Right here. That was the highest point we traded. These lines are the daily. So that's the highest point we traded at yesterday for Monday. And then you can see when we opened at 8:30, we opened right here. So there's a gap between here and here. Notice how we came down there. And I drew that line there just so you could see it real easily. Let's tighten it up. It needs tightening just a hair. And let's zoom back in here. So you can see when we opened at 8:30 right here, there's a gap between there, and so prices would most likely fill that. And see how we came down and tested it a couple of times, but we never could really go higher. So that's a sign that we can't get back up there, that we're probably going to turn down. And usually the next target will be the close from the previous day. And notice how we came down there and we bounced a few times before we went lower a couple of times, and then we ended up bouncing from there and going higher. Um, and we actually closed slightly higher here. So that kind of sums up what happened there and what some of the targets were and what you'd want to look for on a day like this. Generally, these gaps get filled pretty quickly. And generally, once they fill the gap, if prices keep going, your next target will be if it's the close from the previous day. If it's lower, if we're headed down, it'd be lower than our first target. So that as we're headed down to this first target, which is the to fill the gap, then the next one would be the close. Now, this close could have been higher, and that you would have scratched that one out. But generally, those will be your targets, and they don't always fill those. They don't always, even if they fill this one, they don't. They sometimes they trade higher if we trended up. This was a news item here, so that's what really spiked this thing up. So that might have helped keep it from selling off a little more today than it might have normally. We'll see what tomorrow brings. I don't know if there's any news items tomorrow or not, but we'll see. Um, but that's what we're looking at. And then of course we trended down strongly here on the sell-off, but then we found the bottom down here once we met this target. And even though this is an uptrend, this blue channel, you can see how we're above and below the EMA, above and below. You can trade that both ways if you get a decent setup. So keep that in mind as well. It's a very weak uptrend. And as long as you're flipping above and below the EMA, you can trade it both ways. You're even doing that here because we're in this pink range. So you could trade this like a range, but obviously your trades are going to be down here off the low side. And once you've got this channel working down, you got to be very careful buying down here. You got to make sure we're headed the other direction. So anyway, let's zoom on in here, go through the trades. And again, we had this news stuff this morning, 7:30 PPI. That's that. All this is more economic type stuff. So if it's red right now, I'd be flat, at least a quarter feel going into it. So by 7:15, I'd be flat. So that means there's not much to trade today until this kind of settles down. I would say, give it 15 minutes at top. So maybe by 7:45, if things are looking normal, trade it again. So you could have started trading in here. Um, Maybe you notice this, we bounced here. Notice how we came up short there, but we bounced. Uh, this is a very tempting second entry, and if you took it, it would have worked, but I wouldn't take that just because of that channel there and the fact that we came up short. Wait for something at a lower high or something better, and then notice you get a first entry, second entry that fails. So this is actually your signal bar, so your stop goes above that, but the failure was when it broke one tick below that bar. That's where you'd enter. And that's fair, turns out to be a fairly nice trade. And then we're back inside the channel, and it just kind of, generally what'll happen when you get these big news items, it'll try to take that back too, and it'll reset. But when we came back inside this channel and it starts coming into play again, then by all means play it. Notice that this channel is working down. We got a break, a few legs down, and now we're heading higher back in the original channel. And there's a little failure here. I like trading that one just to see if we're going to go back to the upper side again, which we do. And then we're headed. Well, then we're really just kind of chopping sideways back over to the range. And I didn't mark this one, but you could have taken this trade too, because you could really argue that's a triple test, and it's a second entry long, and it's at the key entry point. It was only good for a scalp, and then we're kind of trending lower. But notice how we came down here and we made this failed breakout, and then we make a higher low with this big bullish bar. You would think we were going to try to run higher again, but sometimes with these overshoots, you don't get you don't retest the high. We actually ended up trying here several times, and notice how we never got anywhere near it. But I like those two longs right there. And again, this one's just a little higher low on a failed breakout out of this pink range, and when you're looking for a possible retest anyway. Neither one of these really ended up going anywhere. This one was tempting, but by this time this looks really congested right here, and you're not getting we should have taken off here, and we didn't. And so this is not rejection, this is acceptance at prices below the EMA, so be real careful with that. Here you got room to scalp out before you get back up there. The other problem with this one is that you do have this channel working down, and you haven't you don't have really a close outside the new low yet. So that's another reason to be a little leery of that one. I went back and forth about it, whether it should be green or blue. But being at that key entry point with a triple test and a second entry long, I think you could take that one. It's real close. So if you saw it as being a little risky for that reason, then that's great. Don't take it, because it could fail on you. So that's the beauty of what we do here, is that we leave ourselves some room for discretion, and that way our system is not mechanical. And because if it's mechanical, you got to take it, and you got to take the good ones and all the bad ones and everything. But if you get good enough at reading the chart, you can actually learn to add your chart reading skills to it, and you improve your win percentage. I mean, if you're a good chart reader, you can improve your win percentage exponentially. So that's the beauty of what we do here. We're not pattern traders. We're chart readers, and we just use the patterns to time our entries and our price entry points. So, and it gives us a huge advantage, because we can say, okay, I see something here that I don't like, or I see something here that I really like, and you can add that to your decision, and either not take the trade or trade it. And you may see the trade a little differently than me. Your skill set may not be the same as mine. Yours might be better than mine. And I might say, hey, I don't want to take this trade. You might see it and say, I'm pretty sure I like that trade. I'm taking it. And the better you get at this, the more skilled you'll get at doing it. And the better your win-loss percentage will increase. Your win versus your loss. You'll win more, in other words. So, but anyway, I like those two trades, and we broke out here. We unfortunately didn't get anything down, and this you wouldn't have had this range here yet. You would have had the target here, so that one's very tempting. But I just think you need a higher low or something, and you never really get it here. You just start you just run straight up and you start working sideways, and I don't think you want to go long right there either. There's a failure there, but it doesn't set up like a failure. It just looks like sideways stuff. And there is room back to the. I mean, if this would have been a really bullish bar, maybe you take it. But that's that's questionable. Maybe it closes in the upper 1/3, but if it is, it's like a tick away, and I just don't think you want to risk that. Okay, my wireless headphones, the battery was beeping at me, so I had to plug in there. But we talked about that trade, or no, we were talking about this trade, and nothing here. This turns out to be there is a higher low here, and it's like a little breakout pullback. I somewhat like that trade. I think you could argue for that to be green. Not crazy about it though. I'd like to see it come back and test that again, and then go higher and give you a failure. And so I think you need to wait on a failure there, but I definitely wouldn't enter that on the engulfing bar. But when this closes, but you can see it closes. Of course, you wouldn't have had this range right here yet, so just kind of ignore this range at this point, because what you would have been looking for is we just came back and filled the gap, and now we're headed higher, which is what you'd kind of expect to happen here. So maybe you take that trade. It's a little more aggressive, but there's reasons to like it. And then of course we get a closeout side, a new high, and we're headed lower here. And then we just start chopping sideways again. I don't see anything I like short or long there. We come down here and we test this one more time. Then we get a higher low way away from the EMA on a failed, most likely going to fail on a breakout of this. So I like heading it up again. And this turns out to be a really nice move. And that might be the only trade you need today. You might catch a runner there. Very good odds that you could catch a runner. And if you just came to the first bar that closes outside that gets a break below it, there's you $500 almost on one contract, one runner. And we just kind of chop around here. Again, it's hard to know what prices are doing here. They should be trying to go higher, but they keep turning down, and every time they turn down, they're coming back down here. And so maybe they want a third test of this. And we come down here and we actually go lower this time. I don't see anything here. It's just hard to know. It looks like this is where you kind of start to figure out you're in a range here. We start to get some consistent lows here. Again, I still don't think there's anything here I like until you see this reversal, and that's what you're looking for. Notice your new low, and you go short once, you push through, come back, and it turns down and fails instantly. When it breaks above right there, that's a failure. And I would trade it that way on the engulfing bar if I'm going to trade this. I wouldn't wait for it to close way up here to the upper side of that channel. And I think you're too late then. You have to trade it on that engulfing bar. And it turns out to be a pretty nice little trap there. And that's all you really get out of it. And you're just still kind of chopping around here. This is another one. It's tempting because once again we're bouncing down here near these lows, and you can see we bounced across there multiple times, and we actually make a little higher low than the last one. But it's such a big bar right into the EMA and right into the midline. It's still a possibility. It's another one you could argue to be green. And then we turn down. I don't see a short there, unfortunately. And then you get a little double test here and a higher low and another big bullish bar. Just take that one. You don't know that it's going to keep going. Maybe it will, but you figure you might get resistance right here. But this thing just takes off. And that you see that gap right there. I talk about these a lot. that just shows you that your channel is correct. You see these gaps over important support and resistance areas and trend lines and things all the time. And that usually tells you got your line in the right place. And boom, break outside, new high, and then it turns down. Again, you might trade this one because a lot of times when you push through, you'll come back and test this a few times before you go higher, that midline. So there's another one that maybe you take. It just looks a little sideways there, but we're way away from the EMA. And then, of course, you get a first entry. And then you do get a second entry here, but it's an inside bar, and then you're just chopping sideways. This was a possibility as well. There's not a lot of room there, but it's clear we're going sideways and we're going from side to side, so there's another possibility. And then it breaks out the top, and it somewhat confirms that possible trend line coming down there, and you get a big bearish bar. Whether you have that trend line there or not, it's a failed breakout. It's right at the high. You got plenty of room. Take that trade. And once again, you see that little gap there, so you had to be quick to catch that one. But if you caught it, that's another really nice move. And then we're bouncing, and that kind of sets the channel up for you. There's another trend line coming up through here. Turns down. Try to go higher once, twice. There's you another failure. I like that one. It's probably going to trap people because we'd bounced down here several times, and people probably thinking long. It's a second entry long, but it fails. But if you see the channel, you know that we're probably headed on down. Or at very least, we're going to come to here and test this. We may not get through there. But notice how we bounce, and then you get a first entry, second entry. This one looks a little congested, not the greatest signal bar either, but it's one you might take. And this time we do get through. We bounce off the lows, so now we'll probably go back to the highs, but notice how we don't even get back up there. And then we come underneath and we test it from underneath. This trade is really tempting, and you might take that trade. But there's support right across there. It might be a failed breakout again. And so it's just a little bit, it's just one of those that could go either way. So you may take that trade. And if you don't enter there, you don't get a chance to. It's a nice move. And you sure don't want to enter down here because this looks like an overshoot that could trap you. But it just keeps going. And in the end, you have another steeper channel here. And you get another turn down right off that key entry point. But once again, you've got the channel working up, and it's just a first entry. There's no close outside. You generally want to wait on a lower high or something, or for the break in the new high and a second entry, and you just don't get it. It's just really bearish all of a sudden until we find this support. And notice where it found the support. That's that next target, the close from yesterday. But this channel's still in play for now, so just pay attention to it. You got a new low here, and you get a first entry, second entry. I like this one. Again, we don't have a close outside, but it's such a bearish bar. It's a second entry short. You're expecting a new low. I like that one. Again, you could argue for it to be green, but I like that one, and I think it's worth taking. And we do make a new low, and all of a sudden you get a triple test here with another bearish bar. The problem is you got your break, you got two legs to a new low, but when you see that triple test with that big bearish bar, especially after what looks like it's going to be a really strong bounce, don't be trying to buy this yet. So we're still in a downtrend, and we want some kind of reversal pattern or something. You don't want to try to pick a bottom. And there's another chance to go short. That's a really nice move down. And then you get another little correction and another turn down. But there's no trade there. It's just a first entry, whatever. And then finally, notice you get the reversal. Now you got the break and multiple legs down, and then you get the trap here with the reversal. So a break above that bar is probably going to send prices higher. And sure enough, there it goes again. Boom. There's a second entry long right here, but there's no setup. You get your close. You actually get a little overshoot, close outside, move to a new high, and then you're working lower. And there's no chance to get short there. And right in here, you can see how flat the EMA is getting. It's really hard to know what's happening here. Yeah, you could argue there's a reversal. Actually, the reversal was here, and you don't want to take that. It's too sideways. Everything's inside that bar, and it's just hard to know what's going on here. But you already got a close outside when it tries to confirm it. It pushes a little higher. This one's really tempting, but I'd see if you get a reversal, which you don't. Drops down here, bounces. I'd draw my trend line right there now. You get a pretty good bounce out of there, then a first entry, second entry. Um, this is only the second swing, or the first swing that you really get a chance for your trend line, so it's not confirming a trend line or anything. It is a second entry. We are making higher lows here, and that's a fairly nice bar, but look how sideways it looks, and it is below the EMA. So again, it's not the greatest setup, but it's one that if you catch it right, it's probably going to send some short covering. And look at it, how it does. Look at that. That's a sure enough short covering move right there. All the shorts that got in here, so, oh no, I'm on the wrong side. They realize it here, and they all exit. And that leads to more buying. You actually get another second entry here, but again, you got a little spike and channel down, and you're taking a chance going long there. Again, see the little gap? It actually backs up, but it later and kind of feels it, but it closed on its high, opened on its low, but it did back up and kind of feel that. But again, it tells you got your little channel right there, most likely. So wait on a break here, and you actually get the break. This would have been a nice one if it gave you a good signal bar, because you got your break, a new low, and then you get a higher low trying to go make a new swing high here, and maybe there's a channel here or something. But the signal bar turns out to be, I mean, it's just too congested there. There is what looks like a reversal, but now you're too close to the highs. You're not really looking for a reversal here. This is just a follow through to a finalization of a pattern. So you could say, hey, okay, well, maybe it's a failed second entry, but again, that's not the kind of place you're looking for one, a failure. So you don't take that. And of course, we run up here. We do find the upper side of the channel here. We start trending down, but I don't see any setup here you can take. There's a second entry right there, but not a very good signal bar. And then you get another second entry here, but you came up short. You get your break. This is one, again, you might take. I didn't mark it. My thought process here is you're waiting. We're getting late in the day. Let's wait on a lower high or reversal. And by the time any of that comes, you're just working sideways here. So I don't see anything I like there. But notice what happens. You do have your break. You can come down here, you make a new low, and look where it bounces on the midline of this possible channel. If you back out, you can see you drew your line here, and then there's your highs. And so there's your triple, and you get a triple test right there with a nice bullish bar with plenty of room back to the EMA. So I like taking that one. I don't think depending on how you play this, you probably don't get a runner on this one, unfortunately. So you have to play it more aggressive and not move your stop to break even. You're probably giving yourself some room here for this one to work. But runs up, gets closed outside, turns down right off the key entry point up there. And again, notice how we're swinging above and below the EMA. You're so far away from it here. You may take that trade. Nice big bearish bar. Runs down, close outside, new low. Now you're running back up, close outside, new high. And it turned down right off the key entry point with another big bearish bar. Again, you may take that one. It's getting really late in the day. So you probably want to take sure things here. And while these are high probability, they're not sure things because you could get another little push up or something here. So because this one you actually do get two legs. Actually you get about 3 swings. Here you only have 1 swing up, and so you could get another little push up there, kind of like you did here. Even though it doesn't go higher, it could still go just high enough to stop you out. And this would have been a fairly nice trade. Again, I don't think you get a runner though. close outside, bounces off the midline, and you're working higher again. This is in 230, but you can kind of see that this channel is continuing to play out. You would figure we just came off the highs twice. When we couldn't get back up there, we're probably going to push down and try to go to the low side, and that's what happens. But there it is. It's really a big range day. There's a bigger range here. I didn't mark the bigger range. Here's your overnight highs. Here's your overnight lows right in here. And if you drag this out all the way across, you can see that. We'll just color it so it's a little easier to see. There's your range. And we did fell out the bottom a little bit here. And but we closed. You can see we turned down. We turned down right at the midline when we came back up here, and we traded lower from there. So it's a big range day that closed in the lower half of the range. So a little bit bearish there, but we looked at the daily, and you could see that we could still push higher. That's kind of been the MO. Let's go back and look at it one, and you can see we pushed higher each day, but we're closing back inside the upper side of the envelope there, which is indicating overbought up here, and so that's probably why we're selling off. But you can see we're already trying to push higher here in the overnight. They're doing most of the movement in the overnight where it's easier, and then once the market opens, the selling comes back in because we're so overbought. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't continue to push higher, at least to test this trend line. We got so close today. We got within maybe 50 points there or something. So we may try another push up again to see if we can get up there and test that trend line. If we fail enough times, it'll sell off, and then maybe. I could see it sell off to the midline and pushing up one more time, trying to get up there. We might. You can see this envelope's turning up. So, and we never got to the low side down here. We've got strong support down there around 30, whatever this is. I can't remember. It's just below 3,600, 35 something. But anyway, that's what I saw today. That's how I saw it. So, hope you had a good trading day. I'm going to wrap it up. We're almost 30 minutes here. We'll see what tomorrow brings, but I'm thinking kind of more of the same sideways. Eventually, we're going to get a correction here, even if it's only temporary. But we could continue to kind of push higher here. They're struggling, but there's still some buying coming in each day and pushing it higher. And I don't know what news items we might have, if we have any tomorrow. That could make a difference. We could either get a big push up or a big push down. Either way, we'll see what tomorrow brings. I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll